Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Congresswoman Marsha Fudge, the gentlelady from Ohio, for continuing to, as I say, beat the drum every Monday night on behalf of the Congressional Black Caucus, on behalf of our communities, many of our communities which have been really shut out and marginalized for years and years and years, but also on behalf of the American people, because we know and we recognize as members of the Congressional Black Caucus that what's good for our communities, especially communities of color, the African American community, makes America stronger. It's good for the country. And so thank you very much for continuing to lift our voices on behalf of the people. Tonight, and you've done a great job talking about really the reason and the rationale that we have to embrace workforce development training, job training, because so many of our constituents are not only recently unemployed, but they just haven't been employed for many, many years for many, many historic reasons, many of which are systemic. The opportunities just have not been there. And so, as I was listening to you, I was reminded of the new green industry. It's a $1 trillion industry. But, of course, there are many in our country who don't have the requisite skills to be able to even apply for these jobs in this new industry. And I want to just call attention to one organization in my district in Oakland, California, the Oakland Green Job Corps, where young people are learning green technology, are learning to weatherize homes, are learning to put solar panels on roofs. They're learning and developing the skills necessary to be able to be fully employed in this new industry. And these are young people who may not have had a chance had it not been for the Cypress Mandela Training Center, Mayor Ron Dellums, our City of Oakland, and of course the Department of Labor and all of the partners who have helped put that together. Our Energy Czar from the White House, Ms. Browner, came out and she looked at the Green Job Corps, and we are hoping that this will be seen as a model to replicate throughout the country. Let me just remind you that the Congressional Black Caucus has historically been known as the conscience of the Congress. And we recognize that the dignity of all human beings is extremely important in our work to close these, some of us call it these moral gaps that exist, these disparities. And tonight, of course, we're talking about jobs and employment and unemployment. Well, the good-paying jobs recognize the dignity of all human beings, and when people are unemployed, when they don't have jobs, it's very difficult to take care of their families, take care of themselves. And as a person who majored in psychiatric social work, I understand all the psychological effects. We just see that each and every day now, the emotional trauma, the depression, suicide. Rates are soaring now as a result of this Bush recession. And so we have to remember that when people are unemployed, it's not only that they don't have a job to make money, but it's their self-esteem, their self-worth, it's their dignity that becomes shattered as a result of this. And so we have to work very hard each and every day to make sure that we provide the vehicles and the opportunities for everyone in our country to get a job. The trigger may have been, of course, the bubble in the housing markets in terms of the unemployment rate, but I tell you, these excesses in Wall Street and the failure of the Bush administration to enforce any security laws, the deregulation of the financial services industry. And I was on the Financial Services Committee for 8 years, and we kept talking about that with Chairman Greenspan, and very, very few who really wanted to bite the bullet and say we have to not do this, but we did, unfortunately. And so now we have an industry that's just run wild, really. It's run amok. And it also, we have to remember that there was very little oversight of the banks. And this unfortunate situation has spread this crisis to each and every household and business in our country. We've seen now 7 million jobs lost since the beginning of the Bush recession, and how now this unemployment rate has risen to 9.4% nationally. 14.9%, however, for African Americans and for Latinos. Now, during the Bush administration, 5 million more people fell into poverty. Unfortunately, now we have 37 million Americans living in poverty, 47 million with no health insurance, and that is rising. And so we have to tackle this, because if we don't tackle this, we will have millions more living in poverty. Actually, last week, the Congressional Black Caucus released our agenda as well as our biannual report. And we call it Opportunities for All, Pathways Out of Poverty. All members of the CBC put one of their bills on this agenda. We have 42 bills, and if you look at each and every one of the legislation that's pending that we consider our priority legislation, each one provides a pathway out of poverty and opportunity for all. We also, unfortunately, in the last few years have watched company after company cut their benefits, and millions more Americans now, as I said earlier, lost their health insurance, and the 401s and their retirement plans and pension plans have fallen, unfortunately, off the table. The last administration has left ourselves and our nation in shambles, and it's really critical that we come together to begin the work of providing opportunity for all in America and ending this spiral of poverty that is spiraling, unfortunately, downward with millions more in this situation. We've got to expand and extend the proven anti-poverty programs that were included in the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, like expanding access to the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. We have to maintain support for the vital extensions of unemployment insurance and COBRA health insurance. These are subsidies while millions of Americans, they need these subsidies while millions of Americans continue to face job loss and extended periods of unemployment. These are stopgap measures, but this has to be seen as necessary just to stop the hemorrhaging and give people some relief so that they can survive and sustain themselves until the jobs that we are working so hard to create are created. We've got to maintain support for and invest in education and job training programs, as Congresswoman Fudge talked about earlier, and fully support initiatives such as the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, which our colleague Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who chairs the Housing and Opportunity Subcommittee of the Financial Services Committee, worked so hard with the Congressional Black Caucus's support to bring some stability to our hardest hit communities. But we all know we have to do more. We need to raise and index the minimum wage so that every working person can be assured that they will earn a wage that will lift them up and out of poverty each and every year, without having to rely on legislation to keep up with increases in the cost of living. Yes, we increased the minimum wage several years ago, but I believe, like many of my colleagues believe, that we must support and find ways to provide for a living wage. Raising the minimum wage is not enough. We also must ensure access to early education, early childhood education, guarantee a quality public education for every American student, and make sure that every working family has access to affordable, quality child care. Again, why is child care so important? Well, we have millions of women, millions of single moms and single men who want to work, but they can't afford the child care. And so we cannot look at creating jobs without understanding we must provide for the job training and child care assistance so that they can really afford to get a job and will not have to worry about their young people.